For everybody listening, watching, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and like who you are, where you come from.
So my name is Shea Gilliam, and I am a VP at a global PR agency, and I help lead influencer strategy for the agency. And I'm in San Francisco, so I help lead that for the office there.
So we know you work across so many different categories, which is also what sets you up for so much expertise and all the things that we're going to dive into today. But before we dive into that, I want to hear from you, what excites you about the influencer economy?
Oh my gosh, I think it's growing so rapidly, which means I feel like I have great job security, right? This is not going away. And so when I hear someone say like, oh, it's, eventually brands are going to get sick of this. I'm like, even if they get sick of it, the reality is it's here to stay. Like, we've already proven that influencer marketing works. And even in my daily life, the products I'm buying, I'm usually influenced by online, whether it's an influencer or an ad I see on Instagram or TikTok. And so that's really exciting to be a part of something that is continually growing and getting bigger. I also just think it's ever changing, sometimes for the good, sometimes for worse. But I think that being able to be a part of something where you're constantly being challenged and forced to evolve is really good for me as a person, but also it keeps me thinking, right? You can't get stagnant in this industry or profession because you'll be left behind. And so those things put together, combined with like the people that I work with, both like in my agency, but then also with our agency partners, I work with the best people. And so why would I do anything else? Why would I go anywhere else? It's a lot of fun.
So I want to go back to one of the points that you just made, which is about evolving. And I think this should be pretty self-explanatory, and just in life in general. You want to evolve as a person, as a human, as a creator.
Absolutely.
And that is a really important thing to keep in mind, is that evolution.
Like, to your point, it's easy to find the thing that you're good at and want to continue to do that because you're comfortable, it works. And I think it's hard because change happens so fast in this space, and it's constant. So you don't have time to really relax into something like a content style, a medium, because it changes again in a couple months. But for instance, like, I've been doing the same event every year for a brand, and I was just saying to someone, I'm like, 3 years ago, I helped capture content when we're on site for these creators and influencers. And 3 years ago, it was all static content. I was taking photos, a lot of photos. Now it's all video. There are we're like, oh, we should take a group photo, but that's not showing up in content, right? There's just no static content for these creators and influencers for this particular event. And the brand doesn't want static anymore. And so that's how fast it changed. I don't contract for static anymore at all. Like, every proposal you've seen from me is all video.
Always.
And so even stories, I get occasional requests if a story frame can be static, sure. But it's always video. And that literally changed almost overnight.
So ultimately, as a creator, it can get to that point where you're like, I'm gonna stick with what I know. But it's really important to break outside of that box. And that doesn't mean that you have to hop on every trend. That is not at all what we're saying, but really one of our points is adapt or die in this space. Really push yourself and trying new things.
Well, and I think that's what's great about having a great agency or representation in you guys, is that it's kind of your job too to inform them and to give advice and for them to hear it and process it. But I think that I don't want to get lost in the fact that they need to do everything differently. It's also experiment, right? As you're transitioning into video, is long form easier for you? Is the 6-second video easy? And what is resonating with your audience? So I think there's room to experiment to find what works and what feels more organic outside of the static space, but you can't deny that you have to do video.
Yes, totally agree.
You have to figure that out.
Totally.
But what that looks like is so many things, and you have so much creative freedom in that. So like, don't get stuck on like, well, I really love taking static images. Hear you. But if you want to continue to get brand deals, you have to do video. But what does that look like? That's totally up to you.
And speaking of evolving, we've seen a lot of, back and forth and things kind of changing in the video landscape, short, snappy content, YouTube, longer form content. Like, where do you see video evolving for brands and creators moving forward from here?
I think that's a great question. I think it's still driven by the creator. So if a brand likes a creator and they do 100 cuts, then we'll go with that. If they like a creator that does one long video, we go with that. So we still let the creators dictate the creative in as much as we can, right? But I will say, like, the things the brand cares about is like, how often are they being seen? How organic does it feel? Does the key messaging come through? So all of that. So if the creator can do that in 100 cuts, totally fine. Yeah. But the priority is like showcasing the brand. Yeah. So if it's like 100 cuts and you're seeing the brand like way too fast and then they're off screen, then that's not going to work. Yeah. So it's hard to say, but I think the brand is still, and we encourage the brands to let the influencers and creators lead with their creative.
So even with that, like, who's dictating and driving the creative now?
Yeah, I would say creators are driving that, and also the platforms themselves. Yeah. So I was having a conversation recently about YouTube, and as a millennial, I use YouTube so differently than my Gen Z counterparts at work and even my Gen Alpha kids. And I use it for research purposes and tutorials. If I need to know how to do something, I go to YouTube. Gen Z, it's their TV replacement. So instead of watching a basketball game, they go watch the highlights. And that's all they need. They're watching bloggers do vlogs or day in the life as their form of entertainment. And sometimes they're even watching condensed shows or movies on YouTube. So that's so interesting. And as someone who is a deep millennial, I have to remember that when I have clients that say, I want to reach a Gen Z audience. And, we look at all the platforms and we try to figure out what's best for them and where they have a presence. But YouTube is there, and that's my job, is to keep up and understand how to best position my brands with creators in all of those mediums, even if it's not one that I consume in the same way as like other generations.
Yeah, I think that there is a misconception that Gen Z has this short attention span, or even younger generations have this short attention span, and that they don't consume long form content. And we don't believe that is true. And that's also where it's a slippery slope to go down of just chasing that next trend. Up, jump to short form, up, jump to long form, up, jump to mid form. It's like, really evolving is kind of the theme here, is evolving as a creator, but not writing something off because that's not what you're used to doing, but also not assuming something about the audience, like long form content, not being relevant.
Right. And no, I would say that's not true. And there are lots of big creators that prove them wrong, like Emma Chamberlain. Yeah. Right? Millions of subscribers with her long form video. Bucket List Family. Look at their subscribers. So I think it all, though, depends on the story that you're telling and if it feels authentic. And I hate using that word, but I do think in some situations it's still true. Because you have to find your niche. And I encourage people to find their niche. Like, just being a lifestyle blogger is not going to get you those deals necessarily, because we're also honing in and trying to find people that can speak to audiences that are smaller or much more focused. So I think I was just having this conversation with a creator last night, actually, and I said, experiment with it. And I understand YouTube is a higher barrier to entry in terms of like editing time, content style, content in general, like the actual content itself. So it's an investment, and it's not for everyone. And with so many platforms, you can't do them all and do them all well. It's impossible. So just find the ones that work for you. But I would say don't forget about YouTube, because I do think we're going to see more of a resurgence with brands wanting to work with some longer form videos.
That's a hot take. You heard it here first, people.
Don't forget about YouTube.
Yeah, and I even think if somebody is listening now or thinking about, am I niching down too much, is that a problem too?
Yeah, I think that there can always be some gray area.
There's always gray area, and I think it depends on the goals of the campaign. If we're trying to get reach and impressions, sometimes we will go for those larger lifestyle influencers that can talk to a wider audience. They have a more generalized audience. I mean, we look at everything when we're sourcing for influencers and creators.
I like that. So, okay, in terms of niches.
Yeah. So I see brands more and more going for niche creators. So this year we've sourced for sneakerhead creators. We've sourced for a lot of tech, which we talked about, Ashley, like much more. And that is, it doesn't sound like a niche space, but it is. And for me, I'm always really hyper vigilant about making sure that we have a really good mix of people that represent the world, right? And so sometimes when you get niche, it's hard to find diversity. And I'm not talking about just racial diversity. I'm talking about diversity of thought, diversity of cultural background, diversity of family type. So like all of those things we are mindfully looking for because we want representation in our content for our brands. And I would say too, I think a great example of someone that I think is doing lifestyle well, but also has a little niche is Callie. So when I'm looking for wellness influencers, a lot of the time, there has to be a balance. Sometimes brands only want them to have workout content. That I feel like that's less and less. They love the lifestyle aspect that Callie brings in terms of like, she is known for her workouts and her wellness and lifestyle, but she's a mom, she's posting about traveling, she gets her nails done in a fun way, her food and bev. So that opens her up for lots of different partnerships, not just wellness. But I think that's a great example. She still has a strong POV and something that she grounds herself in, but it's not only that.
Yeah, I think Callie's a great example of someone who's had an amazing evolution of starting more niche in fitness and wellness and now evolving into motherhood and showing different parts of her life, but bringing personality and that connection piece forward for people to genuinely care and connect with her.
And I've even seen people do a poll like, do you want to see more of me on here? And they get discouraged when they have like a couple people that are like, no. And I'm like, but 80% of people said yes. Yeah. You know, don't cater to the 20, like 80%, because then that means the majority want that and you can attract more people because of these things, you know?
No, I mean, that's really interesting because, you know, we've always been position, don't pitch. That's like our mantra here at IKONICFOX. You know that, Shea. We've talked about that before, but where are you seeing, even just like from a casting perspective, how things are evolving along with that? And
do you think that pitching in the traditional sense works?
Most of the time, no. Because we're usually coming up with the ideas and working with creative agencies or our internal creative agency to come up with these campaign ideas. Budgets get set. There's not a ton of wiggle room outside of those budgets to do like a one-off idea. I would say that outreach to brands can still be effective. I get tons of emails, as you can imagine, from agencies and agents saying, I have these influencers, I have this influencer that I think would be great. And I do look at those emails and I scan them and I think like, do I have anyone? And I file them. I keep a log of the influencers that have outreached so that as I cast for brands, I look at that list and I'm like, is there anyone here, right? And so like, I would say continue to do outreach, but I would say the bigger thing is, and you can vouch for this, is building relationships with the agencies and brands that you have. Because, you know, we worked on one campaign together. It went so well. Like, obviously the influencer that we worked with did a great job, but we have minimal communication with them. All of our communication is with you guys in negotiating the contract and collecting content and edits. And so like that went so smoothly that I was like, send me your roster. I would love to work with you again. So that is almost more important, is like getting that foot in the door, and like, because then there's a proven case study for us, right? Like we know that you're going to be great, versus someone that inbounds us, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And then I have to like do contracts, you know, things like that. So that was a very long answer to say, like, I'm not going to say no, it doesn't work. You should still make the effort, but it's not as effective as it once was.
And even with relationships, I mean, that word gets thrown around a lot in the industry, but like, what does that mean to you? Like, what makes a good relationship?
In my mind, it's easy. Like strong communication, you know, turnaround times, flexibility. Like, are you willing to flex with us? Because we understand brands can be demanding. Like, we're in it too, right? And then also just quality of content. Like, did you nail the messaging? Did you read the brief? You know, are you as excited about this partnership as we are? Like, those things sound like, well, yeah, everyone does. No, not everyone does that. And so when I'm looking at rosters, I know that if I work with IKONICFOX, I'm getting very fast comms turned around. Contracts are coming back quickly. I'm getting content on time. And I know that you're going to be able to partner with me on the really hard situations. Like, I can come to you and say, like, I know these edits are hard, but we have to make it happen. And you find a way to make it happen. And I know that. And so I'm never going to lose that. Like, if I'm sourcing for tech influencers, I'm coming to rosters that I know first to see who they have. And then I'm going out and finding more on our own. But proven relationships, like, we're representing a brand and we have a relationship with the brand that we have to protect and uphold. So of course we're going to go to our trusted partners and influencers first, like people that we've built relationships with, that we just know that we'll be able to work through anything with you. But it's something, again, so simple, like, turn in your content on time, be nice people, be flexible. And I'm not gonna lie, like, value add content also helps, you know? Like,
so in terms of kind of that authenticity and being a great brand fit, how much does it actually matter if a creator is talking about those brands and is integrating them into their everyday content?
so we always try first, when we're sourcing and casting, to find the organic brand fans. Who's already talking about these brands that we're representing? And because then it's a natural partnership and fit. And so, like, I think sometimes influencers don't want to just give free publicity to brands. And it's like, well, no, if you do that, it's not that you're giving them a free piece of content. It's like you're raising your hand and saying, I really like you guys and I really would love to work with you. And don't even be shy in saying that. You know, I think that, like, that's the other thing is, you know, don't look at it as I'm giving something away for free. Look at it as in that you're investing in this partnership already, because that's how a brand sees it. And I think that when you're in a campaign and you want to throw up a story because you're on the go eating a bar and you're just happy to tag the brand, we see that and we note it and we send it to the brand with like this person's really excited about this partnership, you know, and it will go a long way. It can't be like, and I get it, right? I don't want influencers to think they have to give something for nothing. But if you're already in a partnership or you're looking for a partnership, it's not nothing. You're not just giving it away. You're really investing in that partnership and relationship.
Okay, so want to talk about another really important factor, at least from our side of things, and something we really value is being on time. And how much does timeliness matter?
We live and die by the timelines, right? And I think I remind on briefing calls, especially if it's a big campaign, this is a national campaign. You are feeding into a much larger campaign. It's not just you that's going live. We have a website going live. We have a PR release going out. We have our celeb partner going live. I have 4 other influencers. when you don't stick to a timeline or push things or make it late, it costs a lot of money to adjust. And we're trying to maximize on the content that we're receiving with paid amplification, with reposts, things like that. And when you're late, we lose money on that. The paid is only live for X amount of days instead of what we had planned for. We have strict content calendars with the brand handles. So if we're doing a collab post and you're a day or two late and we already have content slated to go live, we miss that. So it's really important. And it is amazing the amount of people that don't think those are solid, or they can just ignore them or send something a day or two late. It really messes us up if that happens, and it costs us money. And I don't know that every creator or influencer really understands that. I want to think that they do. And adversely, there have been times that we've been late with something, right? And so we do understand, we do our best to flex, and we appreciate the flexibility on our end, because sometimes, we take a day longer to review the content or whatever the case may be. So I'm not saying, I think timelines on both sides are important, because if we're late, it makes you late. It's a domino effect. But I would say when we're sourcing, if we know a creator is consistently late, that will impact us.
So basically, to wrap that up, what you're saying is no matter how amazing the content is, no matter how amazing that creator may look on the surface, if they're missing deadlines, their team is consistently missing deadlines, that will impact your decision-making in casting them.
Absolutely. And I tell this to people that are not in our world, that you just see the IG reel going live and it's a 30-second thing and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe brands will pay this money for this. And I'm like, that 30-second piece of content has had multiple hands touching it, multiple eyeballs on it, weeks of back and forth with concepting, with review, with edits. Like, it is a massive undertaking, that 30-second video. And so I remind people of that, and I'm like, it is worth it, right? For us, for the brand, for the creator. But yeah, agreed. We don't like to have to turn around and tell brands that a piece of content is late, because it reflects poorly on us, on you guys, on the creator. And we do our best to really keep those relationships high between the brand and the creators. So
for example, if you've had a negative experience with the talent management team, could that impact your decision in casting that creator, even if it's not the creator's fault? It may be the management team that they're part of that you consistently have that same experience with. Does that impact decision making?
I will say it's a consideration, for sure. It's something that we talk about and think about, because if the agency is notoriously late, but we think the creator's on time. At the end of the day, we're going to go with the creator that we love and thinks we can deliver. But we do consider if the agency is notoriously difficult to work with.
Also, there's a perception around ad agencies, PR teams withholding on budgets for creators, or maybe we landed a deal and the creator's like, oh, I could have gotten more if we just tried X, Y, Z. And we're like, no, we have a pulse on where you should be specifically in market to also build that longer term relationship with the brand or agency. But I want you to speak to how you're navigating those conversations and not just trying to pull one over on the creator in terms of budgets.
Yeah, I can only speak to how we approach it. And my team believes in really bolstering the creator economy and equity in that.
And it's so great to hear from the other side, because so often we're having these conversations with amazing partners like you behind the scenes, but I think lifting the veil and having so many hopefully amazing creators tuning into this is really going to help push things along in such a positive way.
Again, it goes back to how badly do you want to build relationships with a brand? What what are your goals for what you're doing and the brands that you work with. If it's relationship building and long-term relationships, then I would say don't go into it jaded and say like, I don't want to be taken advantage of. Like really go into it with an open mind and say, how is this mutually beneficial for me and the brand? And what long-term goals do I have with this brand or with this agency?
As we were wrapping up, there were so many good takeaways on today's episode. And really at the end of it, the core of it is really treating brands and agencies and your community as partners and also people who genuinely matter versus just a transaction.
You have to really think about what makes you unique as a creator and what makes you stand out. Because those are the things that are going to get you recognized by brands, but also like I would say the platform itself, and finding your point of view and your voice in a very congested world, but also a congested area of expertise is difficult, and I get that, but it's going to pay off for you to find kind of your way through all of the noise and be able to have this really strong POV or thing that you do really well.
Awesome. Thank you, Shea, for joining us today. Hopefully we can do a part 2 really soon, maybe in San Francisco next time. If you guys had any questions on this episode, please be sure to shoot us a DM over at IKONICFOX or an email, hello@ikonicfox.com, and we will see you in the next episode.